Hey everyone, welcome back to the show this week. I'm joined by good friend Chris Weist. Chris, welcome back to the show, brother.
Appreciate you having me back on, man. It's always good talking to you.
Dude, one, it's been too long to have you back on the podcast, but number two, we actually finally had a chance to hang out in person. We worked the mobile outdoor show. We were kind of somewhat neighbors on that same row on the same street, and just had a chance to kick it for a little while. Dude, it was awesome to finally meet you in person, hang out. You and I have had countless of conversations on the phone many different times, and I love having that opportunity because what you see is what you get. And dude, I value your friendship, man, and I just want to say it was awesome, and I'm looking forward to more opportunities where we could either do a hunt together, do a scout together, even if you whacked one of your biggest bucks to date, you could give me a call and I could help you recover and track that sucker down. I'm just looking forward to more opportunities for us to hang out, man.
Yeah, dude, it was a big surprise. I don't know how we didn't even get in touch and plan on seeing each other there. I walked by your guys' booth. I was like, holy shit, there's Jeremy.
You're like, there's that midget.
Yeah.
Oh man, no, dude. I like I said, it was awesome, and just to get a chance to hang out, man, and talk to other people as well, and it was a good time, man. But dude, the last time we had a full big normal episode. It was actually it would probably been more of like mid-July, like last July, and we really did your whitetail checklist. We talked about like July, August, September. You were just coming off of that 4 buck year, and you put in a lot of time. And dude, you got to be one of, if not the most person that I know within a friend circle group that puts in the time that you do. And since then, we've had hunting season has come and gone, scouting season, quote unquote, has come and gone. You had a success still last year, but you also had to, overcome some challenges, setbacks. Reflecting upon that type of stuff, what challenges did you have to overcome last season, and that you could kind of think of from that opportunity of the season and everything?
Yeah, all in all, I still had an awesome season last year. I had countless encounters with plenty of big deer that I would love to have got an arrow into. But I was just talking to Dalton Lewis and a couple of those guys from the Stick Boys and Nathan Kill and all. I kind of got humbled last year. Uh, I had shot 6 or 7 deer with my longbow in the past, but I'd never taken the full stride on a full season with just this struggle stick in my hand, and I got humbled. I don't think I was near as ready as I thought I was. I still love it. I shoot every day, and I got big plans for it. But I'm going to take a step back a little bit and get back to my roots, do things the way that I like to do them, and um, I'm gonna pick up the compound a couple sits this year again, with plans to take the longbow out. I got sets just for that. But with that being said, last year, I shot 2 bucks in Maryland with the recurve and just made 2 bad hits on my end. Uh, Hit one tenderloin and hit one right in the ball joint in the shoulder. But all in all, those deer survived. I didn't get very much penetration, so I was at least thankful that I didn't gut shoot nothing and have a fatally wounded deer in that aspect. But other than that, I had a couple misses. That stuff happens, man. It's no joke.
Yeah.
Guys think it's I'm just gonna pick it up, shoot a little bit, and go kill a deer, man. Even though I've been shooting a trad bow for like 8 years and I've got a couple under my belt, dude, it's still hard. it's it's not an easy thing.
Dude, what I liked when you brought yours to the show, like seeing it, and I don't have a lot of buddies that really mess with that. My good friend Albert, he has one, but I felt like like when I held his, it seemed even longer than yours. And I know he has a couple too, different ones, but that was like the one that I was messing with at his camp in
Hmm.
Ohio. But man, like yours is slick, and like you said, you've been doing it for a long time, and people. I always used to say, for all the struggles that I would even have with a compound, adding that even more of that struggle stick in hand, that's a challenge, man. And like I said, I give anybody respect that goes out there and doesn't necessarily even, like, obviously kills, no doubt about it, but even tries and puts that themselves. You're basically cutting almost things in half, and even more probably when it comes to your range and along those lines. Just because, dude, I don't know how many times you texted me. It was like, yep, saw another good one. You know what I mean? And it's like if
Mhm.
he had your compound, you probably would have let it eat, and you have to stick to your guns. You know what you're capable of, and what's going along those lines. And dude, that was the one aspect, is seeing your determination, like from a distance, from a friend. It's like, man, that he makes me want to be better because of how determined you were to stick with that. But it was funny though, because you called your shot. You're like, I'm gonna take the compound out and kill a deer, and boom. Guess what you did? You did that.
Yeah, it took one sit. I didn't even know that was. I didn't really think I was gonna go out and kill anything. I just kind of wanted to feel like that I could kill. I mean, I wanted to feel good when I was in the stand. And next morning,
Mm-hmm.
I had a buck walk by at 10 yards, and it's just like, oh God, it's like you beat yourself up because it's that like one more day. I should have pushed one more day. I'm not saying I
Mm-hmm.
would have hit
Yep.
it, but
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, you don't know what would have happened. That's for dang sure. And I told you too. A friend of mine, I think one of the first times he took it out this year, he killed his buck, and even on film too, which was pretty
hmm
gnarly to think about. And it's just like, yeah, here you have been doing it for 8 years and struggling and killing deer with it, and still doing a good job with it. Not saying that you haven't. It's just that one time someone else takes it out. It's like, all right, I'll take it, I'll try it, and they go ahead and kill a friggin' PA buck with it. But yeah,
oh,
man,
dude, some people have it though. You know what I mean? Like they
mm-hmm.
just have that instinct. Like I think that's one reason that I've never stopped or just given it up completely because like I just have such a competitive nature to me that it really
Yeah.
bugs me that I'm not like super awesome at it. I kill stuff and I'm decent, but I'm not like a professional shooter, which bothers me because that's how I have to be with everything else in life before I can hang it up.
I like it. So when you look back to, other than obviously with the stick bow, any other challenges that you kind of face, and things that like, here's what I did you do anything this off season that, or right now, that you worked on that to help overcome that situation?
As far as everything else, I felt like everything else went fairly smooth. I felt like my setups are really solid,
Mhm.
my access and my woodsmanship. I feel like all that came into play really well. Like I said, I had a lot of really good encounters and I've seen a
Mhm.
lot of good bucks. If there was one thing to touch on, I think it would just be to not overthink the setups.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, Once you've scouted for a while and seen things, you get a gut feeling about stuff. And I think just don't think against your gut. If you need to be in a spot, you have the deer's coming through here. This is how the wind works. Pick your tree. Don't overthink it. Set the tree.
Right. Because think back to some of my most memorable hunts. It was those situations. It was that gut feeling. It was that, I haven't been in there in a long time, or I haven't, this is going to be my virgin sit in this spot. I just know things are going to happen. I think back to the past two bucks that I've killed back at home in PA, Northeast, dude, they were virgin sits. There were spots that like I scouted with my dad, and whether it be postseason or in the summertime, first sit in those spots during that right time. You have that data. You just know when things are in that location are going to be kind of firing off. First virgin sits, boom, killed bucks. And that's you go with your gut. The one, I think, back to 2 seasons ago, even for that, it was during gun season. I kicked out a deer walking out the one night before, and going in, I heard rustling. It was still dark out, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna cut in here off the 2 track a couple yards, get set up, sit on the ground, wait till daylight, see what anything else comes up. A couple minutes after daylight, I was actually on the ground, just saddled in, just so I could just sit, quote unquote, in the saddle, so I'm not rustling leaves and all that stuff by moving my butt or anything like that. I was comfortable the way the kind of ridge system ran. I was kind of hidden behind these trees, and I could still overlook down, and I just see a couple doe walking up and blasted one. That's just, again, going with those gut feelings, seeing things and hearing what was going on around you. And I'm with you like that, as far as like going with your gut, understanding that's something we've been saying for years. And it's kind of like the don't overthink things, right? Don't overcomplicate things. And you and I had that conversation before, and that's where we wanted to kind of take this, is keep things simple. And because I feel like the more you spin your head, you're doing yourself, I think, a disservice, because so many of our friends, so many other great individuals out there put in so much time and effort, and it's easy. It's super. I think it's easier to overcomplicate things than it is to keep things simple. You just have to have like either a good friend that's going to tell you like quit the shit, man. Like, you know what you're doing, just get in there and go kill. And I'm sure good things can happen out of that.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to overthink because you don't want it to be that easy. Even though the setup might be like, well, this is here, this is here, this is where I need to sit. You don't want yourself to be like, well, it's that easy. It's like, well, it
Yeah.
can't be that easy. It's what you're thinking, you know what I mean? So it's like, where do I actually need to be? Because that can't be it. That's where you start, you're staring at a tree for like 35 minutes because you're like, well, what if my thermals pull this way or what if, you know what I mean? It's like, there's like a criteria list where that you should have to check off when you're to spot. You know what I mean? It's like common sense. You should probably know what your prevailing wind is. Will you take that? And if there's a low spot where you're at, that's probably where thermals are going to pull. So that kind of like checks off some of the list. Like if you have a low spot and a prevailing wind, you can pretty much know where your window thermals are going. So you can pick a tree a lot
Right.
easier based off of those two things.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I just, you know what I mean? Like I just going back to what we said, you just put so much time and effort into it, and it's easy to overcomplicate that, but it's just simplify things. Just like you said, have that checklist. If things check the box, throw a sit at it. Is that going to be, for all worst things about it, the only thing that's bad that could come out of that is that maybe you don't see a deer. Maybe you learn something. You're going to learn something out of that sit in some way or one or another. But no doubt about that. When it comes to that, let me ask you this, Chris. Do you think, with all the time that you put in, are you tackling things more so now, especially when it comes to fine tuning areas? Do you spend like, I'm going to try to make this that it makes sense. So let's say last year you scout and hunt territory A, and this year you scouted and did more in territory B to fine tune that because you only scouted that a little bit, territory B last year. Do you kind of look ahead when it comes into that, or is it like I got A, B, C, D, and E, and I try to give them as much time because I know those are going to be spots I'm going to hit? Do you kind of have any mapping as far as like one spot might get more time this year compared to the year prior because I plan on being there more and it's for this year, if that makes sense?
So basically, how I broke it down, I'll just use this year as an example. It's just kind of similar to what I have going on this coming season. Is I'll run like a fleet of cameras over a
Mhm.
giant area, and at this point, in Pennsylvania that I've lived here my whole life, I have pockets. I have
Mhm.
giant areas, but I have small pockets that have historically held good deer. So I always have cameras in all those pockets, even though sometimes those pockets haven't had a good deer in like 2 years. Every once in a while, I'll get a pocket that is good every 3 to 5. Every 3 to 5, like a big one will show up, and that's why I keep those cameras rolling there, no matter if they're completely dead through the summer or the fall. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? I keep a surveillance on those, and then like right now, basically what I'm doing is I've had my cameras up since like February because I already know where I want to be or where I need to be because I've had historical data from those spots from the years past.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. Um, and so then I'll go back in like around June-ish and I'll refresh all those batteries if I need to. And I'm just seeing what I'm looking for is June all over scrapes and things is I want to see a mature deer's like their body. I'm looking at the body. I'm looking for that big hump in that shoulder. I'm looking at big pot bellies. I'm looking to see if there's any mature deer using the area. And then right there, I'm starting to break it down already. So if I got
Mhm.
5, 6 spots where I got a picture of a buck with big pedestals on his head, starting big pot belly, big roll on his shoulder, I'm like, all right, well, I know I need to come back to here for sure in August to see what he turns into. Well, now that it's August, now I'm making my rounds again. And after I make all my rounds, pull all these cards, I'll pick like the best, I'll just say 4 to 6 best spots that have deer in them.
Right.
And what I'm really looking for is a spot that has more than one shooter. If you have one shooter in a spot, you still have that chance that he shifts. But a lot of times in the big woods, I feel like they don't shift near as much. as what deer do in farm country, just because the
Hmm.
food source changes so much. But mountain terrain, the food source is pretty much the same. The only thing that
Hmm.
might change is your browse, your forest floor browse, and your young cuts, things like that. Once the frost hits it, some stuff dies, and they might ship a little bit off of that. But other than that, like the acorns are usually fairly consistent, other than the white oaks. Um, and then I'll just take those 4 to 6 areas, and then those are my focus points for the fall. But with that said, let's just say spots 1 through 6 are my primary. If something happens, changes where maybe pressure messes them up, or maybe there is some kind of food source change. Maybe there's no oaks at all in one area for some ungodly reason. I have spots maybe 7 through 8 that have good deer, but they weren't like the biggest deer, and you have those to fall back on. So I always try to have a list of deer that I have the potentially the opportunity to jump in and hunt. I might have a couple that are like 130, 140 that are like those. That's what I want to kill. But if something happens to where those deer, maybe I got a roamer that's making a giant circle, and it's just I don't want to spend my whole season chasing the tail. But
Right.
I got like 120 incher over here, like acting a fool in a scrape. Like I could pop in there and fill my tag. 'Cause I love big deer, dude, but I also love shooting bucks. So
Hmm.
if a
Yep.
120 is acting a fool and a 140 is making a giant circle, and I don't think I could catch him, like I'm gonna go shoot the 120.
Well, and that's you're the beauty of hunting all the different states that you hunt. Like I feel like you're in a hotbed of a great location. You have a great schedule that aligns with that situation. You have a good homework balance for that to allow you to do that. Like you take even your girl out with you and all that type of stuff. And with you being close to Ohio, having the property there, going then to obviously Maryland so close to you. You have the opportunity for $2 in that state, and obviously PA your home, and then potentially West Virginia, like we've talked about in the past. I mean, you have a nice little plethora of opportunities to go there. And I like that with your scouting and your preparation, you're doing all the things that you can control. Like you're doing, I'm going to put in that time, or like I could hit this location during this time and let all the camera work kind of keep me giving me data, keep tabs on it, whether you're going to hunt it or not. Like that's something that you're able to control. Outside of that, what other things what comes to mind when I say, like, Chris, what are the things that you can control that you really try to hone in on to improve?
Well, I think some of the biggest things that you can control yourself as a hunter, um, one of the most important things is your gear. You know, I think if you can't shoot your bow very well, your odds are kind of low. Yeah, so
Yeah.
you got, obviously shooting your bow, making sure your bow's tuned properly. Me and you already know we're both gear nuts, and I was just
Hmm.
talking to you the other day. I was scared to death to shoot under a 500 grain arrow. Just like that's the kind of stuff that goes through my head. You know what I mean? We put on all this work, and you get a giant buck to step in range. You know what I mean? You want to make sure that everything that you have control of is made. You know,
Hmm.
I don't want to hit a buck with a light arrow, in my opinion, and then not get the kill, and then that's gonna mind crush me for you know what I mean. So, but
Hmm.
if I can have a good sharp broadhead, heavy arrow, my bow's tuned, like I've done everything up to that point. All I gotta do is make the shot, right?
Yep.
So your bow, having it tuned properly, shoot well. I think your gear, like your stand and your sticks and everything, just going through the list, making sure all your bolts, nuts are tight. If something's making a noise,
Yeah.
obviously try to quiet that down, stealth tape, whatever that is. Um, Even your pack, like I used to carry a really big pack and carry everything but a lunch bucket with me. Now I'm like down to a fanny pack and I only pack what I need. My license, maybe a grunt call that I'll use like twice a year, but it's in there. A sharp knife, extra blades, game meat bag, just little stuff. Just enough to
Hmm.
kill a deer and pack it out is basically what I take with me anymore. Um, and as far as like hunting, I think you can control your scouting, making sure your
Hmm.
scouting's done, you know where you need to be, have your trees marked. I'm not a big fan of using a whole bunch of like stuff to mark where you've been. Like I'll never use
Yeah.
ribbon tape because that's a dead giveaway.
Yep.
But I will use cat eyes, but I only put one cat eye on the tree that I hunt. I won't
Right.
use them to mark my way in. I use my Spartan Forge for that. I trace my way out, trace my way in. I know where I'm getting to, and all that's doing is just keeping me from flashing my headlamp around looking for my tree. And as soon as I
Right.
see the dot in the distance, I put my head back down and I'm just V-lining right to it. So I think
Yep.
that just cuts a lot of time down as far as getting to your tree, getting up, and then applying pressure. You can control how much pressure you apply,
Yeah.
and that is one of my biggest things. That's another reason why um, my areas are so vast or so spread apart. Is you can't control how much everybody else is in the timber, but you can control how much you're there. And just an example, like if you have a good area from last year and you have some guys that had just showed up for whatever reason and they're kind of putting a damper on the deer movement, but maybe you have a spot that's off to the side that they don't know about where you think you can still get an opportunity at the deer. There you have the control of how much pressure you apply to where the spot that they don't know about. So if
Yeah.
you already know that spot and you can stay out of it, then you might be able to go in there. You can still get a crack at that deer. And that's, I try to apply my pressure evenly and not burn spots out. But at the same time, you have to know when to park your butt too, throughout the
Right.
season. I like to do 3 days. I like to do 3 day sits. If I'm like, I usually don't hunt spots that I'm not super confident in. Every once in a blue moon, I might have to throw a sit because I have a notion.
Mm-hmm.
But usually at this point, the scrapes and stuff that I like to hunt, I got some dates on, or um, maybe I have visual proof, something of that nature. And I like to put at least 3 days of sitting on that scrape because
Yeah.
I've had too many times where I sit a spot one time, leave, and then a deer shows up the next day. So, and I also feel like if he's not hitting it in a 3 day span, he's probably not hitting it that often or often enough to really kill him, other than like a rut
Right.
set, in a rut. Obviously, if you're in the right spot, then you need to park your butt for a few days, maybe even a week.
Yeah. I want to go back to what you were saying about especially marking and the tree and finding things. You know, I guess I'm guilty of this because that's the one feature I do really like about Spartan Forge is obviously it's in other apps as well, as you take the picture, of the tree, you know what I mean, and be like, okay, this is, I always do the icon that's like the get up tree, right? And you kind of know, but how many times are we getting in there and it's not gray light and it's not bright out? It's usually dark. You know what I mean? Especially
Yep,
those
yep,
those situations. So you're like, oh crap, is that the tree? Is that the base? And that's the one aspect that I've always, even like you said, I've thrown a cat eye or something along those lines where it's that single one, like you, I do what you do. I beeline it right to there. But I always, even if I try to find one where I know, especially for myself, like, oh, I could use that little thicker stump or something along those lines that I could use a little bit extra leverage, I'll even throw another one like on the bottom. So that way, if I know I'm in the vicinity by looking at the Spartan Forge app, and then if I like, let's just say something happened, someone was in there and found my cat eye and picked it off. Like usually they're not also looking down, I found, and it's just, I'll even like throw that on there. So if I'm looking as I'm panning that, trying to find that specific base, it's like, oh, there's that cat eye, or you're able to maybe find that. That's the one aspect that I've tried to do in certain situations. That, like you said, if I'm scouting and it's like, ooh, I could get in here these next couple of days. Sign looks pretty fresh. I'll throw that in there. That's something too that I've done. And man, for how much you get out there and hunt and scout and everything like that, like you said, you don't know when Tom, Dick, and Harry are going to be marching through there. You know what I mean? So,
hmm
and also like what you were saying about giving it that 3-day roll. What if day one the browse or the acorns just aren't being eaten where you're at because they're feeding over on something else, but then that next day, by that time they sucked them all up and they're finally coming to your location.
hmm
I kind of like that rule of thumb, like you give it that too. Now obviously you're not going to be there if the hot sign's not there, I'm assuming, right?
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
It's like
that's friggin'
I
yeah.
I just heard this the other day, and I never really thought about it in this sense, but like they ever talk about how far deer travel? It's like me and you could walk a mile like pretty easy in like it's like 20 minutes just walking.
Mm-hmm.
But like how
Mm-hmm.
quick can a buck cover a mile? You know what I mean? And you think
Yeah.
about how much, how far these deer roam through the mountains and through the darkness of night, and it's you almost have to put that much time in because the buck can cover that much ground, and it's like that, you know what I mean? Like he can be
Yep.
from A to B if he wants to be in no time. I mean, they just cover so much ground, so you just have to put yourself in the best position.
Yeah. I agree with that. Let me ask you this before we dive into like your approach to the season in a sense of like your mentality with it and your overall game plan with because this is something that I've been tackling with talking with my wife of just figuring out kind of the schedule, quote unquote, I guess you could kind of say, like when I really want to hit certain spots and locations and traveling. How do you not stretch yourself too thin with your PA, West Virginia, potentially Ohio and Maryland? How do you kind of keep a good balance and not feel you're like, oh my gosh, I'm all over the place and chasing my tail?
Uh, you mean as far as hunting or home life?
Well, it's mainly hunting, like because you think about like for a situation for me, what I've learned, and it worked out great last year, obviously, because I killed a buck. But in years past, that opening day would hit. I maybe would get a certain buck, maybe out back, towards the back at home, but not necessarily where I normally hunt during middle or late October, the rut. I'm like, ooh, if that's the right wind, I could go in, say, first, second weekend. And now I'm like chasing my tail those early Octobers for this deer, not knowing specifically exactly where the bedding area is and all that
Mhm.
type of stuff, just kind of doing like the prayer thing. And whereas last year it was like, you know what? October 19th through on, that's when I'll go back home. Like anytime before that, I'll hunt locally, I'll stay home. Maybe we could go with the fam. And prior to that, I've always just felt like I was chasing my tail with going here hunting and going in blind and doing this. And I just try to simplify things. And I don't know, man. Like like, cause those, so this year moving forward, it's like PA 100%, New York's 100% because I bought we're in on the lease and all that stuff with me and my buddies. And then Ohio's a must because I bought my license already and doing that hunt with Albert, like doing that experience. And so that
Mhm.
will be a rut hunt. So it's like, okay, where does Maryland factor in? You know what I mean? So it's just like, how do you
Yeah.
try? Like like you said, dude, I'm not even thinking family. Like obviously, I'm just thinking more so like, oh my gosh, obviously you can hunt Sundays in New York, you could hunt Sundays in all the three other states and specific ones here in PA. I'm just trying to wrap my brain around. Like I'm leaning more towards of the three and maybe
Mhm.
Maryland potentially hit Maryland again next year. Do you know what I mean? Just because of that situation, I have a little bit more invested in Ohio already with the license, invested in New York with the lease, and obviously PA.
Yeah, well, I think it
So,
just depends on what your goals are too. Like Maryland
mhm.
opens up so early. Obviously, I'm hitting that first, and I always say that Maryland, Ohio, and Pennsylvania are my top three priorities. And then if I harvest in one of those three, then the next state takes that state's place. So
Got it.
if I kill, let's say, like I always start in Maryland because it opens early September. I'm gonna, I just try to kill a buck, just a rack buck, decent buck. I'm going through my steps. I'm getting my gear ready for what really matters to me as far as my big buck states. Pennsylvania, Ohio. So I'm just out having some fun, trying to kill a good buck, but I'm getting all the kinks worked out of my gear.
Hmm.
And then Ohio opens before PA this year. So I'm moving right into Ohio. I'm gonna hunt that for a few days, and I'm gonna come home hunt Pennsylvania, and for a couple of weeks. And I really just gauge how the season is going. If I harvest in Maryland, then I don't worry about Maryland. And
Hmm.
then if I don't harvest in Ohio and I come home, but I kill a buck in Pennsylvania in like 2, 3 weeks. Well, then I'm jumping back on the Ohio train and trying to spend as much time there as I can.
Right.
But then also like the other states have times, like specific times of the season. So like I had 5 states in mind this year, but that's only if everything works out perfect. It was going to be
Mm-hmm.
Maryland, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Ohio in between, if I need to, and then West Virginia. I have some really, really good dates on a scrape at the end of October, right around the 20th to like the 24th in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I would really like to be there at that time frame, but it's only going to be if I have already harvested. And then Virginia, I have some cameras in Virginia, and I'd really like to be there for that muzzleloader, like November 4 through, a couple days. You can buy like a 3-day out-of-state license that's fairly cheap, and I'd like to do a
Right.
muzzleloader rut hunt down there. So it's like I'm not dedicating the whole season to every state. You know what I mean? There's just time frames that make sense to me that I have the best opportunity to kill in a short time frame and not have to spend a lot of time there. Where
Mm-hmm.
versus if I had to pick a state to spend the most time out of state, it would definitely be Ohio. Like I try to get there every weekend if I can because I can hunt Maryland or Pennsylvania every day of the week while I'm home because Maryland's a short drive and obviously I live right by basically everything that I hunt. So
Right. Yeah. So that was going to be my next question is like, what's your favorite out of all those states to hunt?
I don't know. It's hard to beat home, but there's
Yeah.
something about Ohio, man. Ohio just does it for me. It's like there's so much ground in Ohio. It's like Pennsylvania. I think Ohio has just an enormous amount of public ground, just like Pennsylvania does. And granted, like Pennsylvania, dude, like we have some big freaking deer in pockets, but so does
Mm-hmm.
Ohio, man. It's like, but the difference is it's just like a step or two above Pennsylvania, where it's like you just don't know where a 180 is going to be hanging out. You know, what I mean, it could be any crook, cranny corner, and where I have seen those type of deer in Ohio, it like blows your mind. Like, why the hell is this deer living here? Until you see it, and you're like, well, that makes perfect sense because nobody's dumb enough to go in there, or everybody
Right.
walks right past it. It's those stupid spots where these giant deer live, and it's just I, I, yeah. If I was, I love her to death, but if I was a single man, I wouldn't be living in Pennsylvania. I'll tell you that. I'd be 365 in Ohio.
Yep. I hear you, man. That's funny. Yeah. It's crazy to, like I said, just mapping it. Like when you literally map it out, it's a lot.
Oh,
It's,
it's a
you're like,
ton.
dang, like I'm here, you know what I mean? I'm here, I'm there. And I start laughing just because, at sitting here at 37 years old, man, there's, you only get so many Halloweens with my girls and all that type of stuff. And that's where it's like, I felt like I've always done a pretty good job, especially the last 2 years, Chris, where I've been able to really pick and feel good about the decision I made because it's like, yeah, let's do Halloween. I got you that night because in a couple days it looks great. Do you know what I mean? And I'm able to do like a 2-3 step like sit or something along those lines. And
Hmm.
everybody always talks about Halloween and all that stuff. Man, sometimes it's like that before. I'll take that before Halloween. Though, like what you said, that 19th through the 24th, I'll take that any day of the week anymore over my experiences the last couple of seasons on Halloween. It's like
Hmm.
after November, like November 3rd, like I almost feel like that 30th through November 2nd, especially back at home for me, things get quiet. Like I'll still get a buck on camera like during the
It's a
day and all
dead
that stuff. I'm
zone.
not saying but
Yeah,
for some
I
reason it's
agree.
a dead zone. Yeah. And then all of a sudden after that it's like a flip switch and it's like
Yeah.
chasing is going bonkers.
The best day that we had last year was October 28th, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
I'd put money on it.
Mm-hmm.
Just from all my camera inventory, we had that big cold front come through. Dude, the 28th was fire last year. I had so many mature bucks, not just big bucks, like old bucks on their feet in the daylight on the 20th of October last year.
It's crazy. So yeah, and I like your mentality of going early, especially having that opportunity to hunt Maryland early to get your
Hmm.
kinks out to figure out what we just talked about, things you can control, right, of getting out there. That's the beauty of those expos that we just work together, because especially, for someone that is just getting into, say, saddle hunting, that just purchased it, you still got a lot of time to get some practice in the backyard. Like you could
Oh
just
yeah.
you could feel, if you are somewhat athletic and could understand how to move your feet and trust the gear. That's the two things I always say is, one, trust the gear, two, be athletic. And if you're able to do that, you could just be 1 foot off the ground in the backyard or somewhere in on a tree, and you just move around, see how it feels, see how it works, lean into the saddle, all that jazz. You could feel confident if you do that multiple times to get out there and hunt, right? Obviously, practice with your sticks and climbing and getting up and down safely, but actually being in it to hunt. You do it half a dozen times, I think you're capable of hunting. Then you master it as the season goes, just because that's how I felt, especially my first year, going back, what, 4.5, 5 years ago, when I got into this, like into my first saddle. It was like, okay, first time I get into it, I was like an idiot going around the tree, and I'm like, what's going on? And then it was until you figure it out, man. And then that's where it's like, oh, okay, it's kind of like, you got to be athletic, you maneuver a certain way and all that type of stuff, and it ends up being easier. So those early season hunts, that's why every time when I've gone to Maryland or done Delaware, those early season hunts, I've always felt like once we get back for the new season here in PA, it's like, oh, I've already done it this year. I'm good to go. And you worked out those kinks a little bit better.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think getting in early and getting all the kinks worked out just sets you up for a better season. And
Yeah.
I mean, like I told you before, I've probably killed like 90% of my bigger deer early season.
Mm-hmm.
Like last year was just a fluke, I guess. It took me longer, but I mean, I had to stick bow, so that's one reason it took me longer. I had opportunities to kill way earlier. I had that like 125-inch 10 in Maryland at 25 yards
Mm-hmm.
opening weekend, and I had a 120-inch 8-point 28 yards in Pennsylvania on the 19th of October. I mean, like that was, I still had a good season. It was just what was in my hand. That's all, man.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
fine with me, dude. Like
Yep.
I was still in, had my time in, and still had the encounter, so I still won that part.
Yeah. Anything else for this upcoming year that you're really pumped about? Anything new, or new areas or anything along those lines that you're excited to see how things come about?
Oh, dude, I'm just freaking stoked to get in a tree already, man. I'm almost tired of
Yeah.
waiting. Maryland's like
Yeah.
2.5 weeks away, and I'm just chomping at the bit, dude. I'm washing all my new Osseo gear right now. It's all getting washed and put in bags right now. I got my freaking bow tuned and shooting good, and I got my stand all together. I'm gonna take it out probably tomorrow and hang it up, mess with it some, and I got some new areas. I got plenty of new areas, but um, some of my new areas, they're almost for like 2025, 2026. They're getting
Mm-hmm.
monitored by the cameras, so I have that intel for years to come. But it's nice to also have those to fall back on throughout the season if
Yeah.
something happens with your A1 spots.
Right. How many spots do you usually put a camera in and go around scouting, and things look good, but then after like that year of either scouting it more or maybe a hunt or the camera, do you check off? Do you go through a bunch of those locations? Because I mean, not every spot is going to be a home run. Like, or is it like how you were saying earlier about prioritizing them? That's like a secondary spot.
I would probably run the cameras clear up and well, I don't know. I'd probably give them a fall unless
Mm-hmm.
it's like a for sure. Like, man, this isn't what I thought it was. I would probably let them soak. Like if I check it
Yeah.
twice through like a couple months and there hasn't been nothing on it worth my time, then I would probably move the camera. I'd probably just change it up. I mean that's what we're having for the tools. The cameras is just a
Yeah.
tool.
Yep.
Just your success based off the camera is how you use it. If you use it to look at pictures and just pictures, you're probably going to fall short of what it's actually made for. But if you could actually use it as a tool, like it's intended to be for, and take all the information away from it that is at your disposal, then you can really use that to help capitalize on your success.
Yeah. So this is a question I've been asking some of my buddies that have, so it's a repeat as far as like week to week and all that stuff, that I know have a lot of good cameras out and get, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
doe or bucks or whatever, what kind of deer behavior have you noticed over the last, couple years or anything like that? Are you noticing certain bucks have certain characteristics, or how, man, when a doe lights this scrape up, I know pretty soon, how those bucks will come falling, checking those later on. And I know something that's you and I have always geeked out about, like, man, those summer months when we get either a young buck or all the does hitting those mock scrapes, we're like, keep coming, honey. You know what I mean? Where we get fired up about that situation. But as far as like deer behavior in general, is there anything that sticks out to you where you're like, man, that buck was a bully, or anything along those lines at all?
Nothing like super, super specific. I really think like in the really big woods, it's hard
Mm-hmm.
to get
Yeah.
really specific information only because I don't get very many pictures, dude. Like if I have a camera over a scrape in the mountains, man, if I get a couple hundred pictures over like a couple months, like that was a pretty good camera pull.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they got
Yep.
these freaking cell plans, like none of them even fit what I need. It's like if they had a 400 picture plan, that would be perfect for me. Like cheap, that's all I'm only going to use probably 300 pictures of it. Um, yeah, I just don't get that many pictures now. There's like a couple things, like a couple of neat things that I picked out in like the last month. I had a buck come in and actually work the dirt in a scrape already in July. Like he'd come in, they're full velvet. He'd come in and was hitting a licking branch, and I got a series of pictures of him pawing the dirt. And oh, that was neat. I mean, he was feeling his
Yep.
Cheerios already. It's probably just a cool
Mm-hmm.
morning, and he's probably as ready as what we are. But
Yep.
I'm starting to see specific scrapes that um, does tend to just come to pee in. Um, I mean that I know it's early and that doesn't really mean a lot right now, but I feel like that's just another piece of the puzzle. I mean, if she's coming there to pee, I feel like that's going to translate later into the fall because if
Yep.
that doe, usually does don't shift like bucks do. So if that
Right.
doe's there and she's in there, peeing in that scrape all the time, at
She
some
feels
point
comfortable.
she's going to know where to go when she is in heat. She's going to go right there, pee in that scrape, and wait for one of those bucks to come tend to her. So I feel like
100%.
there's little things to pay attention to.
So last year, dude, that's when I ran that. I've had a camera on the same tree, same location back at home, and it is nonstop during the spring, during the summer, early fall, with does just up and down this trail. This scrape is literally right on the trail, and every time they just stop, piss, keep going. Then when they're going
Yeah.
back down, they walk down, lick the licking branch, stop,
Hmm.
pee, and keep going. And it's a revolving door, dude. Like you were saying, heck, you get that first nice cold snap that October 22nd. And that sucker's freshened up. That I'm going to sit there.
Hmm. Yeah,
That's
and like I said, I don't know if it has any kind of translation, but man, if you could find a couple scrapes that does are always peeing in close to doe bedding, man,
mhm.
I would really think that'd be something to zone in on. I mean,
Yeah,
there's so much information to learn though. It's like to keep track of everything. Yeah, I keep track of a lot, I feel like, in my opinion, but there's still like those wee little tiny things that just now catching on to, even after running cameras on scrapes for years, that because you don't get
hmm,
all of that stuff on film all the time. Hell,
no.
half the time I feel like the cameras don't even take pictures. So,
Right.
what I mean? These cameras,
Yep.
man, they're so hit or miss. You miss so much information. There's shit going on behind the tree that you don't know about off to the sides. You're only getting a small window. That's a lot of times. That's why I'm running cluster sets now. Like if it means a lot to me, and I know like I cannot miss out on this scrape, I'll set two cameras up, dude, from two different directions, and I'll make
Yeah.
sure that those cameras are maintenance before hunting season. Like I don't care if I got to go in there a day like in September and blow it up one more time to put new batteries in it, dude. I'll do it because I just if it's one of those spots, then I feel like I cannot miss out on that information.
Yeah. Well, I kind of even go back to what I said earlier. It's like that with those does, they feel comfortable in those spots. I mean, a lot of the deer, especially the does that where I'm hunting, that's a doe bedding spot. Like my dad and I have always, the last couple of years, have always said that. That's why we're like, let's just stay out of it. We'll do Labor Day weekend. We'll do the camera refresh at that point in time. You know, freshen up any more different mock scrapes. Throw up another camera. Let one soak maybe on a different trail, or we extend our range. Basically, you could kind of say in that aspect of things, and let it soak and pick it up postseason. And that's when I messaged you and I was like, holy shit, finally, after I picked up this camera after 2 years, it's like that big one has made that loop. He's hit every single camera that I put out specifically for him. And it's like, that's when a head scratcher goes in, because it's like, gosh dang it, he's on every single one of them. Like it's just like a cat and mouse game. I need to take 10 buddies up there and just be like, all right, sit around here. One of us might see him. But that's going back to that though. I really do. I think they're comfortable. They bed there, and they're just like you said, dude. I really do think like, okay, this is the spot when it's time for the bucks to move in. They're those locations that they're hitting. And that was honestly, Chris, that was one that I found. Like that was a scrape that I found. It was on that trail. They crushed it. I'll doctor it up here and there with just by ripping up the dirt, but I make sure there's a licking branch of some sort always there. And just, you know, it's kind of like a bomb-proof situation. They got good cover coming up. It funnels from the rocks and come a little bit as well. So it's kind of I don't want to say foolproof, but you get in there quiet. I think you have a good chance of seeing something, and that's what fires me up about that spot. And again, going back to that of learning the deer behavior. Like if I didn't have a camera there and I knew I had a scrape and I saw all the rubs nearby, it's like, okay, I know the spot's good. When do you hunt it though? But it's like after I saw all those does hitting that, like you said, I took the logic of taking the time of timing it and timing it right, and it worked out.
And I think that's like, because you said you found that scrape. The scrape was already there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a misconception too, because I've noticed lately, like when I was at the expo, I had a couple guys ask me about the scrapes that I'm working and working with and hunting, and they were asking me about mock scrapes. I don't make mock scrapes that often. Like I'm really big proponent on finding the scrapes that were already pre-existing. And that's because where they're located, the right scrape it was there for a reason. You know, I mean, the deer are already there. They feel comfortable there. A lot of times it's in a low spot where, you know, the thermals and the wind plays and, you know, comes into play, or everything pulls to that spot because he's not only scent checking that licking branch and the dirt, if a doe pissed in it, he can sit there and smell everything from that spot. You know, a lot of times they're very specific if you can figure it out. So I just wanted to touch on that because I had some guys ask me about mocks. Now, like we've talked before too, like I'll use a mock if I have to. Like if I'm just in a situation where I'm trying to cut him off or catch him earlier, you know, I'll try to make one close to where he's bedding or something like that. But yeah, I really don't make mock scrapes that often. I just put boot work in and I just find the ones that are already there. I think there's a lot more great scrapes out there than what people think. They just haven't stumbled into them yet.
Yeah. Well, I was like, even going to what you said about clustering, the situation from a couple years ago where when I mentioned earlier, when I said hunting out back, when I would go out that situation, there was a double scrape, and the tree that I was on right next to it, there was, I don't even know what it was, like buckthorn or something. It was just kind of all thorny and bushy, and there wasn't anything on it. It was kind of like still dead. And right there, boom, there was a scrape. I was like, 10 yards away is the big double scrape, what I'm looking at. And then literally right beneath my trees, there's this sucker. So some buck came right through and was probably mulling around with, because one other buck, because sometimes, or especially during the September months, I was still getting them clustered a little bit where they were coming in and, group of bucks. So one was probably hitting a double scrape and that other one was hitting that one. And then they kind of would rotate, I'm assuming. But it was like tore up. And I was like, dang, all right, this is like a little, little scrape haven for these guys. So yeah, like you said, a camera's only a tool and it doesn't pick up absolutely everything.
Oh, dude. Like an example from today, I literally just went into an area where there's a bottom that's got like 3 big scrapes. I just went in there like a week ago and I put 2 cameras up on these 2 scrapes. I think I sent you some pictures off of those actually already.
Mm-hmm.
But the night that I left, I cut a big track. I followed into a big scrape. I put a cell camera up on it and I tuned it up a little bit. And that evening before dark, I had a freaking hammer standing in it. And it bothered me that I didn't have a camera on the 3rd scrape because I had these bucks coming in from a direction that kind of threw me off. So I'm like, man, like if this is where I need to be this season, I need to know everything. I couldn't really pick out anything specific on my map that made sense. So I was like, I got to get in there one more time. I had an extra camera with me today. I put it on that scrape. And I was like, while I'm here, if I'm going to disturb, with my presence, I'm going to run over and check my other SD card while I'm here, since I'm already laying my scent down. And I had 3 other shooter bucks on that camera on my SD that's 50 yards from my cell that I never got on my cell. And I'm just like, God, like you miss so much with one camera, you know what I mean? But if it's an important area to you, cluster those things, man. Just if it's important, use the cameras, use the tool. Because if I was just sitting here on the couch until hunting season, basing everything off that cell camera, man, I'd be sitting in the wrong freaking spot. I'll tell you that right now. But now that I know what I know, that just boosted my confidence through the roof. Because the direction, the time, how they entered the scrape, it's like they walk right past my cell, right past that scrape to go hit this scrape. It's like crazy. The stuff that you miss.
Dude, and you and I are fans of those Tasco and what's the one from Amazon, WOS? Is that brand?
That's a secret.
I think
Keep
too.
that on the low.
Yeah, that we'll see a jump in the price on Amazon for those.
Yeah, man.
I know. What am I doing? I'm gonna edit that out. No, man. No, Chris, man, I appreciate you, dude, coming on. I know you're not feeling 100%, dude, and wish you speedy recovery. But this was a fun chat and fires me up even more for deer season, brother, man. I can't wait to see your success and like I said, hopefully you'll be early on and you'll be able to be like, hey, I need your help. Come track and get this sucker. As I walk up, you'll be like, all right, look at him. He's already right there, and you make me do it for you, but I'll do it.
Yeah, if anybody's wondering why I sound freaking scratchy, I got some kind of damn stomach bug going on. I'm just glad nobody can hear me hiccuping the whole time.
Yeah, all good,
but
brother.
I appreciate you having me on, dude. Yeah, dude, I always enjoy our conversations, and we always have good ones. I look forward to it.
You're a real one. I appreciate you, man. Check out Unleash the Weist. I like it. So, anywhere else, dude? Are you doing any more filming this year before we get off?
Oh God, I don't know. I'm gonna try. I'll do my best, but I'm scared to death that camera's gonna mess up a prime opportunity. But we'll see. I think I just need to get some better camera gear. That's all. If I have something that's really sturdy and something that I can rely on, then yeah. But
I think we just need to get you one of those, either like a 360 camera or heck, even one of those like painted arrow things to just clip your phone on. Just get one of those good magnets and slap your phone on, hit record, and you're golden. It's so easy now for people that just want to get into it. You don't need to get all the fancy stuff and all that. But no, man, I appreciate it, dude. Go check out Chris, one of the real ones, and I appreciate him. So check him out. Thanks again for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next week. Antler Up.